My name is Naomi Lane. I'm 23 years old, a nursing student from Portland, Oregon. I live alone in a studio apartment. I've never believed in ghosts or demons, and until a week ago, I thought nightmares only happened while you were asleep. But everything changed when I received a video from my best friend Kara. There was just one problem. Kara had already been dead for 3 days. I didn't open the video immediately. I didn't even think it was real. But when I played it, she looked straight into the camera, crying, whispering my name, begging me not to come looking for her. And then something stepped into frame, something that didn't move like a person. What happened next shattered my reality, pulled me into a series of events that I still don't fully understand. And if you're watching this, don't open strange messages, and whatever you do, don't replace, subscribe, like, and share if this story gives you chills. More terrifying true like stories drop every week. Stay with you. This story is written and edited by Dark Lifeside Diaries. Message came at 3:12 a.m. A soft vibration on my nightstand that pulled me out of a restless dream, my eyes half livid and dry. Blink at the bright screen. It was from Kara. Kara White, my best friend since high school. She had died 3 nights ago in a freak accident, hit by a speeding car while crossing a poorly lit road outside her apartment. I had been at her funeral. I had watched her mother cry, and yet there it was, a new message from her number. Naomi, please don't ignore this. Watch it alone. Turn your lights off. At first, I thought it was someone's idea of a sick joke. Maybe her number had been hacked. Maybe someone, though. This was funny. When I opened the video, my heart fell into my stomach. It was Kara, pale, exhausted, her hair tangled like she hadn't slept in days. She was sitting in what looked like a closet, the light flickering above her, and her hands were trembling. Naomi, listen to me, she whispered, her voice hoarse. You have to destroy your phone. Don't let it in. Don't reply to anything it knows when you respond. Then she broke down, sobbing, and the camera started to shake. Behen D heard the closet door open slowly, but there was no hand on the knob, just darkness spreading like smoke. And then something moved, a shape, too tall, too thin, a face that flickered like static. I froze, my fingers trembled. And before I could stop myself, I texted back, "What the hell is this?" The message failed to send, but the screen glitched, and suddenly I wasn't in control of my phone anymore. The camera turned on by itself, the front lens activated. I saw my own terrified face, and behind me, only for a second, I saw Kara, but not the Kara I knew. Her mouth hung open, wider than humanly possible. Her eyes were hollow, and she wasn't alone. There was something else next to her, watching me wait, and she dropped the phone as if it burned me, the screen still glowing up at the ceiling, its camera stuck on my frozen, wide-eyed reflection. But I didn't dare pick it back up, because something about that moment felt final, like a door had been opened that couldn't be closed. Again, I backed away from the device, half expecting something to crawl out of it, but instead the phone screen blinked off, then back on again, and this time it was playing another video, one I hadn't opened, hadn't clicked, hadn't received. And it showed a grainy night vision clip of my apartment from inside, filmed from the corner near the ceiling like some security footage I'd never installed. And there I was, lying in bed, except in the clip I wasn't alone. A shadow stood over me, featureless and tall, flickering in and out of visibility like a broken signal, and after 15 seconds it leaned down slowly until its head was inches from mine and whispered something into my ear. I couldn't hear the words, but in real life, watching it unfold, I suddenly felt cold breath against my neck, even though no one was there. I screamed and grabbed my phone, trying to delete the video, shut it off, anything, but the screen went black and a new message appeared. Don't reply again. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out, and in a panic I pulled the battery from the phone, powered down everything, unplugged my router, turned off the lights, and sat in silence in the corner of the room, like a child hiding from a monster. But the silence didn't last. From the hallway just beyond my apartment door, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, bare feet on linoleum, and then a soft knock 3 times, followed by the unmistakable sound of Kara's voice calling my name. Only it wasn't quite her voice anymore. It was slowed down, distorted, like someone playing a recording at half speed with static behind it. "Naomi, I'm so cold. Let me in." I didn't move, I didn't breathe, I didn't dare answer. But my phone lying in pieces on the table turned back on by itself, screen glowing red, and a new message appeared across the screen. You replied once, that's all it needs. I turned toward the window thinking I could jump out if I had to, but the glass no longer showed the street. It showed Kara's closet, the one from the video, and she was back inside staring at me through the glass like it was a screen, mouthing words again desperately. Only this time, I could read her lips perfectly. It's already inside your apartment. My vision blurred, the lights flickered, the walls groaned, and in the reflection of the black TV screen, I saw something move behind me, tall, hollow-eyed, grinning. And the last thing I heard before everything went dark was the video, replaying itself on full volume over and over as if daring me to reply again. When I woke up, it was morning, or at least it looked like morning, sunlight pouring into perfectly through the blinds to golden like it had been painted on, and everything round me was exactly where it should have been, except for the phone, which now sat propped up perfectly on my chest with the screen showing only one word, ready? I screamed and threw it across the room, but as it hit the floor, the screen didn't shatter. It cracked in a single straight line, splitting the display like an eye-opening, and in that small broken space, I saw a glimpse of Kara, again, mouth stitched shut, tears streaming, shaking her head slowly as if begging me not to continue. But the phone buzzed violently, and then a new message came through, denying the story won't stop the ending. That's when I realized something truly sick. This wasn't about watching the videos or replying to texts. It was about acknowledging them, about knowing it was a trap disguised as grief. The moment I'd watched Kara's first message, I hadn't just mourned her, I'd activated something that had been waiting for me. I didn't know what it wanted, but I knew it was using Kara like bait, and the worst part, she knew it. I decided to leave, to run, and within 30 minutes, I had packed a small bag, locked the apartment behind me, and fled to my sister's place across town. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to make her believe I needed to crash for a few nights. But that night, as I lay awake on her couch with my phone shut off and the curtains drawn tight, the TV in the corner flickered on by itself, static crackling, then slowly fading into an image. Kara, again, this time crouched in a hallway I didn't recognize, eyes wide, lips trembling, and she whispered, "He's not following me anymore. He's following you." I jumped to unplug the TV, but before I could, the screen blinked and showed something else. Me sleeping in the exact same position I was lying in on my sister's couch, except in the video someone was behind me, crouched low, its long fingers brushing my hair, sniffing my skin. Like it was learning me, I turned around instinctively, but no one was there. No sound, no movement, just the echo of Kara's voice now whispering from inside the screen over and over again. "You shouldn't have replied. You shouldn't have replied." I screamed. My sister came running. She saw the TV off, the room quiet, and begged me to get help. I wanted to believe I was imagining it all. But that night she got a text message from an unknown number, and when she opened it, she saw a picture of herself sleeping with me standing at the edge of her bed, eyes wide, mouth smiling. I never sent the picture. I don't even remember the moment it shows, and as I read her message aloud in horror, the words began to fade from the screen and rewrite themselves into one final sentence. "It's your turn to film." I wanted to believe there was still a way out, a ritual, a reset, a way to delete the chain that started with that first message. But the deeper I dug, the more I realized this was the curse that attached to you. It was a story that needed a narrator, and the moment you acknowledge its first chapter, it chose you to finish it. I left my sister's house that night without a word, terrified I'd pull her deeper into the spiral. And I checked into a motel 2 towns over using a fake name, no ID, cash, only tossing my phone into a roadside storm drain just to be sure. But the moment I unlocked the motel room door, I knew I hadn't escaped it. The lights flickered before I touched the switch. The old TV powered on by itself, and the bed sheets were already pulled down like someone or something was expecting me. The TV played static again, then snapped into a grainy home video when I instantly recognized as my childhood living room, except I was watching a version of myself at 7 years old, sitting on the couch staring into the camera like I knew it was watching, And then I whispered something that chilled me to the bone. You're late. He's been waiting, and behind my younger self, in the darkened hallway where my parents should have been, I saw the figure again, the tall static-faced thing that moved like a cryptid while his head tilting to one side like he was studying the lens, and the screen glitched violently before turning black. A new message flickered across the screen. The ending can't be written until the narrator remembers. The night I didn't sleep, I sat in the bathtub with the lights off and a metal pipe clutched in my hand. Like a weapon, eyes glued to the bathroom mirror because it had started to reflect things that weren't in the room. Kara walking past, in the background a flickering doorway behind me where there should have been a blank wall, and sometimes the sound of my own voice reading. Passages I never wrote by dawn. There were scratches on the inside of the door, and I swear to God I hadn't made them, but they formed a message if you stood back far enough. Finish the story or take her place. Who was her, Kara? Or me? I didn't know anymore. I left the motel in a panic and went to the only place I hadn't checked, Kara's apartment. It had been sealed since the funeral, but I still had a spare key, and when I stepped inside, everything was untouched. The flickering kitchen light, the couch, still indented from where she last sat, and her closet door, slightly ajar. The phone I'd thrown away hours earlier lay on the floor inside, glowing, but when I picked it up, the screen showed a new video titled Final Transmission. My fingers hovered over it. I didn't want to watch, but the light in the room dimmed, the air turned cold, and a voice whispered from the screen, not Kara's, not mine, but something beneath both. You read the first word. You answered now. You write the last. I didn't press play. The video started by itself, the screen pulsing with that familiar red glow as if it had been waiting for me, and there was Kara again, but not like before. Her face was clearer now, but too clear too. Focused as if filmed in ultra-high definition, every tear track on her cheeks, every twitch of fear in her eyes captured with the kind of detail that felt wrong. She sat motionless, staring into the camera, breathing heavily, whispering my name like a prayer. And then she said something that made my blood turn to ice. It wrote us into the ending. Naomi, it needs an ending. Her mouth moved faster now, words tripping over each other. Some I could understand, some in a language I swear didn't exist. And then she stopped, blinked slowly, and looked directly at me, not the camera, me, through the screen, and she said, when it's your turn, you won't even know it. You'll think you're still watching the video. Cut to black, but the audio kept playing, heavy breathing, echoing footsteps, a whisper like a flickering radio. The narrator must finish. The narrator must finish. And then I realized the breathing wasn't from the phone anymore. It was from behind me. I turned slowly, but there was nothing, just the closet door, which was now wide open, revealing a tunnel I swear hadn't been there before. Wooden steps leading downward into impossible darkness, the air pulsing with heat, and something that smelled like burning photographs. I should have run, I should have screamed, but something pulled me forward like a string wrapped around my spine, and as I descended those steps, the walls around me began to change, photos of me, hundreds of them lining the passage, but distorted as if drawn by someone who only half remembered what a face looked like. My eyes too wide, my mouth wrong. In some I was crying, in others I was watching someone else cry. And in the very last one, taped to the door at the bottom, was a photo of Kara, but instead of her name, it had mine written underneath in thick red ink. I pushed the door open and stepped into what looked like a film set, a room designed to look like my apartment down to every last detail, except there were cameras in every corner, all pointing at me. On the table was a journal, old and leather-bound, with a pen beside it and a note that read, "You have 1 hour to finish your chapter." The door locked behind me with a sound that echoed like thunder. I tried to scream, but the sound didn't leave my throat. The cameras began to blink red, the lights dimmed, and the journal opened itself to a blank page, which began writing on its own. Part 5. Naomi accepts her role. I backed away, heart pounding, but the walls began to close and literally folding like paper, and behind them I could see Kara again, watching from her own box, mouthing the words, "If you stop writing, you take my place forever." So I picked up the pen with shaking hands and began to write, the ink turning from black to blood red with each word, the room breathing round me, the air thick with them. Memories I didn't recognize, but somehow remembered, and somewhere above a voice hollow proud eternal whispered, "Only one narrator survives this story." The pen felt heavier with every sentence I wrote, like it was draining something from me. Memories, warmth, pieces of myself I hadn't even noticed were missing until I looked up from the journal and realized I couldn't remember how I got there, what day it was, or what my sister's face looked like. The walls around me kept pulsing like lungs inhaling shadows, and the cameras in the corners buzzed louder each time I paused, as if warning me not to stop even for a second. I wrote scenes I didn't recognize. Naomi hides a key inside her mouth before the lights go out. Naomi begins to forget her own name. Naomi sees herself in the footage, but she's not the one holding the camera. And the worst part was, as I wrote, these things began happening as though the journal wasn't capturing events, but creating them. I ran to the door screaming, begging Kara wherever she was to tell me how to get out. But instead the lights overhead burst in sync one by one, plunging me into pulsing red emergency glow. And on the TV across the room, another video began to play, Kara lying in what looked like the exact same room I was trapped in, blood on her hands, the mirror shattered beside her, whispering the words, "Naomi, if you're watching this, you're Tafaran. It needs a soul to write its ending." I tried to stop it, but I couldn't finish. And then she reached toward the screen and screamed, "Don't let it turn you into the ink." The feed glitched, and then I saw myself on the screen, current me writing, trembling, bleeding from the nose, eyes glassy, and behind me, the figure was there again, full form now, limbs impossibly long, face blurred like static, holding a second pen in one hand and a page in the other, my obituary. I threw the journal to the ground and screamed, "I'm not writing anymore." But the room responded violently, the walls rattling, the cameras flickering white hot, and the journal flipped its pages wildly until it landed on a blank one that read in bold black letters. Then she rewrote someone else. Before I could move, the door behind me swung open, not to a hallway, but to a mirror version of my apartment, all shadows and slow-moving fog. And in the middle of the room sat my sister, tied to a chair, a blindfold over her eyes, humming softly, like she was trying to keep herself sane. I ran to her, tried to pull her free, but the air grew thick like molasses, and every step I took moved me further away from her. A voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere at once, "If you won't finish the story, Naomi, then she will live it. Choose." I turned to the journal on the floor. The pen was a prey again. The cameras refocused. The red light blinked. The page wrote a new line before my eyes. "Naomi." I sits down. Naomi writes. Naomi watches her sister disappear. And I screamed louder than I ever had in my life, knowing no one would hear me except the thing that was now wearing Kara's face, standing just beyond the glass, waiting for me to decide who would be the ending. This time there was no good choice. Either I finished writing and risked becoming another lost narrator in its endless looping tale, or I refused and watched my sister get erased, not just from the room in front of me, but from existence itself. Every trace of her deleted like a corrupted file. And as I stood there paralyzed by fear and guilt, the figure behind the glass wall leaned forward, placing one bony, impossible hand against the mirror's surface, and the lights above my sister's chair began to dim. She tilted her head up, then sensing me whispering my name through the gag, her fingers twitching as if begging me not to let her become the next Kara. And I realized that maybe, just maybe, this thing wanted me to choose between writing and living, but it had underestimated something. I could choose to do neither. I grabbed the journal and the pen and turned to the last page, not to write my surrender, but to change the ending, to rewrite its ending, and I screamed as I forced my hand to move, the ink burning like acid as I scribbled the words. The narrator writes the final word, and with it the story ends forever. The room trembled violently like an earthquake made of screams and static. The cameras words so fast the lens is cracked, and the mirror shattered outward into dust, freeing my sister, freeing Kara's image, freeing me, or so I thought. Because as the room collapsed around us, I saw something crawling out from between the pages of the journal, tall and twitching, eyes like static, a mouth stitched shut by ink itself, and it screamed a soundless howl, and the journal burst into flames, taking the creature with it. But just before it vanished, it pointed to my chest and mouthed one final word, narrator, then all went black. I awoke in a hospital bed for in my arm white light above me and a nurse telling me I had been found unconscious in a burned motel with no ID, no phone, and no name. When they asked me who I was, I said, Naomi Lane, but the nurse frowned confused and told me there were no records of anyone by that name in the system. I looked into the mirror beside my bed, and I didn't recognize my face. The world outside moved slower. People passed by like old footage. I was never meeting mine. That night, when I turned on the hospital TV, it didn't show channels. It played one video on loop. Me sitting at a desk, pen in hand, journal open, camera blinking red. And then I heard it again, the voice from the first message, only this time deeper, older, and right beside my ear. You wrote the ending, but you didn't say stop. Now I can't leave the hospital. The windows never show the same view. Twice my sister tried to visit, but when she looked at me, she asked where Naomi was. She didn't recognize me anymore. I don't know who I am. I don't know if I'm still in the story or if I've become the page it's written on. But if you've made it this far, if you watched all of it, if you listened, then you've become part of the tale too. And soon your screen will go red, your camera will turn on, and the first word will be written. Thank you for watching. What part of Naomi's terrifying journey gave you the biggest chills? Was it the journal, the static figure, or the moment she realized she was being watched before she even replied? Comment your favorite part below and tell us, would you have replied to the message? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed this series. We have more twisted tales coming. Just make sure you don't reply to any strange messages before then. Dark Life Side Diaries, where nightmares are written into reality.